1. Countdown to COP30. Science as our climate action compass. 2. Brazil's COP30 cruise ship accommodations, costs and concerns. 3. Brazil addresses COP30 hotel costs, ensures accessibility for developing nations. 1. Countdown to COP30. Science as our climate action compass. Climate change isn't just a far-off threat, its effects are already shaking lives and communities across the globe. But here's where it gets controversial. Despite a tidal wave of scientific evidence and rising climate activism, meaningful action is still trailing far behind the urgency of the problem. Why? Let's delve into what was discussed at the Countdown to COP30 event, where a powerful call was made. Science has to be the backbone of all our climate decisions from now on. High-profile voices like the European Union's ambassador to the United Kingdom, Pedro Serrano, set the tone by urging attendees to not only listen to what the data says, but to act, especially as the visible impacts of climate change escalate. It's easy to say, harder to do. But are we ready for that level of change? This pivotal gathering, co-organized by the Grantham Institute and the EU delegation to the UK, and held at Sinfonia Smith Square on June 25, commemorated both the 10th anniversary of the landmark Paris Agreement and the critical moment halfway between COP29 and COP30. That timing alone adds extra pressure to make progress this year. As Professor Sir Brian Hoskins highlighted, bringing together decision-makers, from diplomats and scientists to business leaders and policy experts, at this crucial juncture, is all about evaluating where we stand and what must come next to achieve real climate progress. But here's the part most people miss. Science isn't just about modeling future temperatures. As Benoît Faraco, climate ambassador for the French government, explained, science needs to guide every step toward COP30 in Belém. The road ahead won't be easy, Faraco acknowledged that. Yet the steady advancements since the Paris Agreement and renewed global commitment, like collaborations at the recent conference on the ocean, send a promising signal. International cooperation still matters. Even when geopolitics gets messy, there's reason for optimism. *** The 1.5 degrees Celsius debate. Does the target still hold up? *** A cornerstone of the Paris Agreement is its ambition to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius, viewed as the threshold for avoiding the worst climate impacts. But is that goal still realistic, or even relevant? This is where the climate discussion gets heated. Plenty of politicians and even some scientists debate its feasibility, given current trends. Dr. Friederike Otto, a leading climate scientist from Imperial College London and founder of World Weather Attribution, stressed that the stakes are higher than ever. She told the audience, "No corner of the world is immune," reinforcing that the Paris Agreement's targets remain as vital today as they were a decade ago. She also made clear, taking climate action pays off in more ways than one, including benefits for public health and social fairness. Adding to this, Professor Uri Rogelj, head of research at the Grantham Institute, underscored that 1.5 degrees Celsius is not just an arbitrary benchmark. It's a scientifically calculated limit, designed to prevent irreversible harm. Even if we exceed it, he discussed the idea of an overshoot approach, aiming to bring temperatures back down after a temporary spike. For Rogelj, every fraction of a degree we can save matters, and acting now isn't just advisable, it's a legal and ethical responsibility. Do you agree, or do you think the world should pivot to more achievable targets? COP30, the summit of real-world delivery. Talk is cheap without effective follow-through. That's why a major topic at the event was how COP30 needs to focus on making things happen on the ground. Easier said than done. This COP of implementation demands that businesses, governments at all levels, courts, and the wider public work in sync. Nancy Gillis, an expert on business sustainability, pointed out a bold reality. despite some recent signs of backtracking by companies, business leaders can't ignore climate, regulations, and market pressures are catching up fast. But clear, consistent messaging from policymakers and financial leaders will be crucial to speed things up. And this isn't just top-down. Diana Aconcia called on climate-ambitious companies to be vocal champions for change, highlighting how corporate advocacy can tip the scales. If you think only national governments matter, think again. The Under 2 Coalition, for example, now unites over 200 subnational governments, states, regions, provinces, around a net-zero pledge. Yana Garcia, California's top environmental official, reminded everyone that regional leadership will play a starring role at COP30. Meanwhile, Professor Christina Voigt drew attention to another overlooked engine of change: international and national courts. Increasingly, judges are citing the 1.5 degrees Celsius limit to hold governments accountable and compel stronger action through climate litigation, a controversial but powerful trend that questions where real climate leadership comes from. Grassroots momentum and the misinformation threat. It's not just policymakers who are driving change. Luisa Franco Machado, founder of Equilabs, noted a surge in grassroots climate action. Ordinary people are demanding more ambitious solutions. Yet, she warned, we're up against infrastructures of delay, complex networks of economic and political interests working to slow progress. One shocking fact: a handful of websites, mainly backed by the fossil fuel industry, are responsible for a whopping 70% of the climate misinformation on social media. This disinformation crisis undermines trust in science and confuses the public. COP30 aims to tackle this problem head-on, making the fight against climate fake news a central theme. Do you think governments are doing enough to stop climate misinformation? Or is it too little, too late? New visions for COP30, and your role. The event concluded with a stirring message from Alice de Maurice Amarim Voges, Program Director for the COP30 presidency. Now is the time to rethink what COP conferences should actually deliver. She called for a broader, bottom-up mobilization, going far beyond formal talks to ignite real action everywhere. To make this vision reality, COP30 will introduce innovations like the global Ethical Stocktake, a sweeping consultation that engages people from all walks of life, including faith leaders, scientists, business executives, and policymakers. The insights gathered will be compiled into a report, set to shape the agenda at Belém. Behind-the-scenes debates are sure to rage over big-ticket items like the global goal on adaptation, financing pathways from Baku to Belém, and the Just Transition Work Program. But here's the question many won't admit: is global diplomacy enough? Or is it everyday action from individuals and local communities that will turn the tide? Where do you think the power to change the climate story really lies? Let us know your thoughts below. Are you optimistic, skeptical, or somewhere in between? 2. Brazil's COP30 cruise ship accommodations, costs and concerns. Here's a bold statement: the world's most critical climate talks are at risk of becoming an exclusive club for the wealthy. But here's where it gets controversial. Brazil's solution to accommodate delegates for COP30 in Belém includes offering rooms on cruise ships, capping costs at $220 a night for the poorest nations. Sounds like a win, right? Not so fast. This move has sparked outrage and skepticism, leaving many wondering if it's enough to ensure fair participation for all. Let's dive in. Brazil has stepped up to address concerns raised by African and Pacific delegations about the lack of affordable lodging in Belém, the host city for COP30. The government has pledged to provide accommodations costing no more than $220 per night for representatives from 98 of the world's smallest developing countries and island nations. And this is the part most people miss. These rooms are primarily on 2 cruise ships docked in the port of Uteiro, a 30-minute ride from the summit venue. These ships offer 3,900 cabins and 6,000 beds, part of a broader plan to house all attendees. Walter Correa, the Special Secretary for COP30 Logistics, assured that these ships are just one of many lodging options. But here's the catch. Delegates from other countries will have to pay up to $600 a night, and the timing for booking these rooms remains unclear. Is this a step forward, or a band-aid on a bullet wound? Climate negotiators from African and Pacific nations aren't convinced. They argue the price cap is still too high, potentially excluding some developing countries from participating. Adao Soares Barbosa, a negotiator from Timor-Leste, bluntly stated, $220 a night is still too much for developing countries. Here's where it gets even more contentious. The accommodation platform is operational, but only accessible to those specifically invited. Anne Rasmussen, lead negotiator for the small island group AOSIS, welcomed the initiative, but is waiting for formal communication. When asked if only cruise ship cabins are listed, the COP30 presidency dodged the question, stating vaguely that all modalities like hotels and vacation rentals are included. This response comes 3 weeks after African and Pacific nations publicly voiced concerns that high accommodation costs could bar them from negotiations. These talks are crucial, addressing issues like climate adaptation and fossil fuel transition. While the UN subsidizes costs for up to 3 delegates from some developing countries, the Daily Subsistence Allowance, DSA, is capped at $149 per day for Belém, far below the $220 capital. Is this a fair deal? Or are we setting the stage for an exclusive COP? One negotiator pointed out the harsh reality, even with the $220 cap, it's still beyond what most delegates can afford. They added, if delegates spend all their DSA on accommodation, they are forced to pay out of pocket for everything else. Another negotiator warned, this is shaping up to be an exclusive COP where only those with big budgets can attend. Civil society and media participation seem like an afterthought. Here's a thought-provoking question. Why are countries like Kenya, with a higher GDP per person than Nigeria, offered the $220 cap while others are left out? The COP30 presidency claims the selection is based on UN categories like least developed countries, LDCs, and small island developing states, SIDS, but the criteria remain opaque. Kenya, Sri Lanka, and Nicaragua, none of which fall into these categories, were included, raising eyebrows. Adding fuel to the fire, green shipping campaigners have slammed the use of cruise ships, calling them a climate disaster. The Master of Science Seaview and Costa Diadema emit over 140,000 tons of CO2 equivalent annually, more than entire Pacific Island nations like Nauru and Kiribati. Lucy Gilliam of One Planet Port criticized, it makes a farce of the COP. When asked about protecting locals from air pollution, the COP30 presidency promised to offset all emissions, but is that enough? Here's the bottom line. While Brazil's efforts are a step in the right direction, they fall short of addressing the core issue, ensuring equitable participation for all nations, regardless of wealth. As one official from an African state put it, $600 is way above our limit. If accommodation isn't resolved, it'll be hard for us to participate. What do you think? Is Brazil's approach fair? Or does it perpetuate inequality in global climate talks? Share your thoughts in the comments. Let's spark a conversation that matters. 3. Brazil addresses COP30 hotel costs, ensures accessibility for developing nations. The alarming truth is this. Sky-high hotel costs in remote Belém could exclude vulnerable nations from the most critical climate talks of our time. But here's where Brazil steps in with urgent solutions, though not everyone's convinced they'll work. Brazil has officially confirmed it now meets the UN's requirement of 20,000 rooms for November's COP30 climate summit in Belém. This comes after intense pressure from developing nations and small island states, who feared exorbitant accommodation prices would block their participation. Walter Correa, Brazil's summit secretary, openly acknowledged these concerns stemmed from earlier outcries at the Bonn Climate Conference, where delegates warned that price gouging might silence the voices most impacted by climate disasters. "We're guaranteeing accessible prices so no one gets left behind," Correa stressed. "Excluding nations already suffering climate devastation. That's unthinkable." The choice of Belém, aimed at spotlighting Amazon rainforest conservation, ironically created logistical hurdles. With only 30,000 confirmed rooms against a projected 45,000 attendees, Brazil is scrambling to fill the gap through unconventional means: private homes, repurposed schools, and even converted ferries. Here's the twist: Brazil's new booking platform prioritizes 98 developing nations with 1,500 rooms priced at $100 to $220 nightly. Another 1,000 rooms, priced up to $600, will soon open to all delegations, while 2 cruise ships will add 3,900 cabins. But let's be real, is a $600 room truly accessible for a scientist from a low-income nation? And why hasn't the UN verified Brazil's room figures? Activists remain wary. After years of COPs in protest-restricted countries, this summit promised inclusivity. Yet with civil society groups still hunting affordable stays, Brazil admits it can't cap all prices. So we've got to ask, are these measures enough to prevent economic discrimination at a summit about equity? Where do you stand on this tension between ambition and execution? Share your take below, let's debate solutions.